And now we take this time of centering and taking ourselves within to the silence, where we are always free and always full of life and spirit. We are all one in this level of consciousness. I invite you to take a deep breath and release. Let go of any stress or strain, any random thoughts or irritants. And take another breath and feel the relaxation moving from the top of your head like a wave all the way through your body, down through your feet and toes. In this quiet time, I realize and affirm my true nature, which is spirit. I am a spiritual being. Having this experience of human life. And I am here raising consciousness, learning to love, learning to be free, learning to be all that I am already. As spirit. I raise my eyes up to the heavens in my consciousness. Which is really a reflection of all that is. With this ultimate realization of consciousness, there is only oneness. There is no separation. There is only wholeness. And I see it, and I feel it through every cell in my body. For this is peace, love, harmony, health, and well-being, which is my true nature. And with these thoughts, and with this realization, and with my raising up my eyes in consciousness, I now take these into the silence. And in this place, I realize the one truth of who I am, who we all are, and all existence is. One in spirit, as spirit. I realize I am love. I am life. And I am peace. And there's nothing that can change that. I raise my consciousness to realize these truths and let the other things that I focus on fall away. This is where I live. In spirit, in love, and in peace. Amen. I invite you to gently bring yourself back, and we'll continue with the singing of the New Lord's Prayer. Beautiful as always. So, volume up. Beam me up. No. Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So today we're going to do some fun stuff, which is kind of a summary of a process we've been going through for a year, which last summer with Reverend Judy and I, we started studying the book Heart-Centered Metaphysics by Reverend Paul Hasselbeck. And it's kind of like the modern textbook for unity. And it's in 4 sections, so we did 4 parts. So we did last summer, we did a section, fall we did a section, spring we did a section, and this summer we did the final section and just finished that up a week ago. So I'm going to condense it all into right now. No, sort of. Part of it is. So I'm going to read from this Heart-Centered Metaphysics. Right off the bat, he starts with, and it's chapter 2 of 31 or 2 chapters. So the title of this very second chapter is Life is Consciousness. And Paul says, the development of consciousness is key to demonstrating our good and overcoming the stuff that happens in this relative realm. Kind-hearted development of consciousness requires self-awareness, self-knowledge, and awareness of the process of evolution of the awareness of spirit or divine mind. It also requires substantial time invested in meditating in the silence and prayer. So, it's interesting because I have heard some, over the years, different people say, why are we doing all this stuff? Why do I keep going to different groups and meditations and come to unity and do all those things? When do I know I've got it? Some people will say, well, we'll see. So one of the things that is laid out by Paul Hasselbeck in the book is these 4 levels of consciousness. And so in essence, what we're doing, all the spiritual activity, all the different things that we do, even daily activities, we're really working on building our consciousness and working through these different levels. And so there's the 4 levels. One is victim, the lowest level, okay, where everything happens to me. I have no control, I have no influence, or I just feel bad, I just feel bad, I just feel bad, and that's where I'm at, okay? Then the victor, everything can be controlled by me. So I shift out of that, but now I'm gonna do it, right? It's gonna be my physical force and my will of my ego and my whatever. I'm gonna figure this out and I'm gonna make it different, all by myself. That's kind of the victor level of consciousness. Then we have the vessel level, where I realize I am a child of God, okay? And God shows up as me. So I feel God is flowing through me, Spirit is flowing through me. I am part of that whole divine flow. And that's an understanding level of consciousness. And then the highest level, which is verity, which I think is a cool word. I never really heard it before studying this years ago, but verity is when I realize that I am the Christ consciousness and oneness. So it's not that it's flowing through me or it's some part of me, it's that I am. I am that I am. I am spirit. There is no separation. You're spirit. Everybody is. And when I really know that, live that, feel that, that's verity. And in unity, we would say that was the level that Jesus Christ rose to in his consciousness. And in the Bible, you will see a lot of different things going on with these levels of consciousness. Now, the next slide is my flip chart from the class, which is a little messy. But we had so much fun with it, I just couldn't. So a few things about this. Number one is we don't get a graduation certificate or a diploma from going to one level to the next. Unfortunately, it would be nice, in this day and age, everyone gets a participation trophy or whatever, but it doesn't quite work that way. What our reward is the demonstration in our life. That's what tells us where we're at. And we're not just at one place all the time. So one of the distinctions he makes is there's kind of the stage that you're at, the general stage. So where's your general consciousness, your general mindset, your general behavior on a regular basis? People are generally kind of at one of these four stages, most of the time, let's say. But not all the time. We all shift throughout these at different times depending on what's going on and how we respond to it, right? So I may be at vessel consciousness most of the time, but man, I can go down into victim in a hurry, right? Given the right situation or my whatever, I get off center. I tell people when I get knocked off my center, then stuff happens like that. So we flex between that, but our general state is somewhere in there. And you can see this in the Bible, especially kind of a comparison between the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament, and the New Testament. All the fire and brimstone and fighting and da-da-da-da-da that goes on in the Old Testament is the victim-victor levels playing themselves out, all right? So that's a lot of what was there during that time. Jesus Christ came to teach us to move beyond that. And so he was teaching some new things, and he's focusing on vessel and ultimately verity. And he brought new lessons. In fact, as you read the Bible, a lot of times Jesus will start by saying, you may have heard, or you may have heard this in the past, but I'm here to tell you the lesson to move up the ladder of consciousness, right? So he saw that a lot of the laws a lot of the way people were acting was down in the victim and victor, and he was trying to teach us all, and still is, how to move up in that level of consciousness. Okay. The other thing that I wrote at the very top and at the very bottom is like, where is heaven and where is hell? Okay? Well, it's really a state of mind that then gets outpictured in our life. And when we're at the victim level, that's hell, right? And you don't have to go to some place that has fire and brimstone in the center of the earth to experience that hell, right? Same on the top. When we reach that level of consciousness of knowing that there is only spirit and we are only spirit, that's heaven. And that's what Jesus Christ arose to. Okay? So it's a continuum all the way through, and we experience our consciousness in those different ways. So that's what we're working on in our lives, in our spiritual lives, in our spiritual development. And unity has always been a spiritual development movement. It's not, it's always about education. It's always about developing ourselves, and that means not everything is fixed. There's many stories of Charles Fillmore when he'd be giving talks and lectures where someone would say, well, you said that 2 weeks ago you said something different. He goes, I reserve the right to change my mind, you know? Like, I move up these things too. It's like, oh, a new realization. That's different. Okay. And this is a daily word. Most of you are familiar with the daily word. We read it earlier today. But this is a copy of the first one from July of 1924. Okay? So that's when Unity started publishing daily word prayer thoughts. And silent unity has been around for more than 100, we had the 100th anniversary, so I don't know, 100-something years, which is a 24/7 prayer service and vigil that's based out of Unity Village. So it's all about the prayer and the meditation and the different ways we can build this consciousness. So, affirmative prayer and meditation are key unity principles. And from this little booklet, unity booklet, Affirmative Prayer, there's quotes from different authors in it, and from Charles Fillmore, our co-founder. God's life is my life, and I vibrate with harmony and wholeness. I am free with the knowledge that all is good. I am, therefore, perfectly whole and well. So we use these things: prayer, meditation, denials, affirmations, gratitude, and everything else we can get: music, dance, all kinds of things, nature, mindfulness, whatever we can to help us raise our consciousness. And I think it's good to have many of these things and use them, because my experience is it affects me on different levels. Like drumming, like we had earlier, and that's a spiritual experience in a way that silent prayer isn't. It's just different, but it's great, So whatever works and whatever takes us closer to our understanding of who we really are, which is spirit, all of that is good, and that's what we teach in Unity. Now, in Unity, as I mentioned, we have a strong tradition of prayer, and being a former prayer chaplain years ago and so forth, we've talked about doing these things for a long time. But I thought it would be fun or interesting to actually have our prayer chaplains say what they do, because I don't know that a lot of people really understand what's going on over in the corner or with the prayer box and other kinds of things. So what they do, and then also a short demonstration of how do we pray with other people, because that is also part of it. We have our own consciousness we're working on, but we also have people that we're talking to, working with, and praying with. So Debbie and Kari, Deb Walker, who's the team leader for the chaplains, and Kari Hen are going to come up. I'm going to give you this one.
Okay, thank you. I want to first thank Barry. As those of you who have been prayer chaplains for a long time know, we've been talking about this for at least 13 years. And he got us into it, so we're doing it. So, at our last prayer chaplain meeting, we finalized our list of points we felt needed to be covered. And right before I begin those, I want to just thank Martin, because one of the things prayer chaplains do is lead the World Day of Prayer, and you have graciously agreed to live stream the Unity Village prayer service, the service that is opening the World Day of Prayer festivities down at Unity Village. So that'll be the Wednesday night before our Thursday vigil. And we'll have more information coming about what we'll be doing for Thursday. But thank you, Martin. There'll be live streaming of the candlelight walk from one building to another, and then the service itself for the opening. Anyway, on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis, prayer chaplains provide prayer, obviously. We have 3 ways we do that. In person, we're present before or after services. We have our prayer box, and anybody can put any prayer requests they want in there. You don't have to spell anything out if you don't want to. If you want to write, you can. But you can just put an initial or something. It's just the intent of the request. And we also have an email address that you can email for a prayer. That's listed in the bulletin. Regardless of how you access our prayer services, we are not counselors, we're not advisors. We train to connect with the divine within ourselves and others in prayer. We honor confidentiality, individual autonomy, and the infinite wisdom and love of Spirit. So we don't pray for specific outcomes. Instead, we're working to affirm divine will for good. So how that plays out is we wouldn't pray to make your spouse vote the way you want them to. Or pray that Epic appoints you CEO with a matching salary. But we will acknowledge your desire for wisdom, order, abundance, or health, and affirm that it is available in its best form for you or for whoever you're requesting prayer for. We might use the phrase, this or something better, which many people are familiar with. We are also trained to release any personal grip we may have on an outcome to spiritual power to work it out. So we may not remember what you asked us to pray about. If we released well, we may not remember the next time we see you what you asked us to pray with you about. And also, so we are not tempted to hold you in a consciousness of, oh, that's that problem. We don't ask you how things went. But please, if you feel like you want another prayer on the same topic, feel free to ask us again. You just got to tell us what it is again, or another one. And if you want to tell us how things turned out, please feel free to do that. We're happy to have information. So on that note, I want to thank Kari for agreeing to be a prayer requester, and I will then do. Typically, we face each other when we're praying. Huh? Do you want, hi Kari, do you want to hold hands or just hold yours?
I think I will just hold so I can, I'm not going to hold hands just so I can hold the microphone, etc. So, but normally, I would probably say yes and we would hold hands as we do the prayer. But I'm requesting a prayer, so. Yeah, actually my prayer is for gratitude. Recently, my family and I went to the Outer Banks of North Carolina for a reunion with my mom's side of the family. And there was a couple different nights between 35 to 42 people each night. And before I left, I sent an email asking people to consider leaving their really scented products like colognes and perfumes and essential oils at home because it makes me really sick when I encounter them. And it was so great because everybody chose to honor my request, and I was able to connect with every individual there without getting sick. And it was so fun. I felt really loved and supported and really healthy. And the other thing that I'm grateful for is that over the last 2 years, I've had a test result that's been becoming increasingly worse every time I'm tested, every 3 months. And I just had it tested last week, and I'm well within normal range, which is like, wow.
Hallelujah. Okay, well, thank you. Well, let's take a moment first. Let's take a moment first of breathing in and then releasing our breath to start the process of releasing any tension we may have. We give thanks for the opportunity to pray together. We give thanks for the infinite presence of divine love, wisdom, and heart in our world as expressed by those in Kari's family who listened and heard her words and loved her sufficiently to honor her request so that they all could share together in a happy family reunion in health and joy. We give thanks for the expansion of health in physical expression. We know that divine life is ever within Kari, seeking expression, and we rejoice that it is coming forth more fully now. We know that these blessings will continue to be available to Kari in their current form and in blessings we have not yet imagined. We give thanks for the good beyond expression that we can experience. Thank you, God, for Kari and her family. Amen.
Thank you, God. Amen.
Now, individual prayer chaplains have their own styles, but that is kind of an overall process that we'd like to achieve. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So thank you. And the key thing here is prayer is not to get God to change or spirit to change, right? It's like, give me more, give me this, do this, you know, da 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 da. It's to raise our consciousness. It's to raise our ability to understand the truth of spirit in our lives. So we're working on raising our consciousness. That's why we don't tie to outcomes, okay? So we want divine order to work, and we want to raise ourselves up in consciousness, because that's a whole new level of creativity, and all kinds of different outcomes or demonstrations could occur that we might not even be aware of. So to ask for a specific thing isn't the point in our affirmative prayer process. So thank you guys for demonstrating that. Appreciate that. Another aspect of this, oops, went too fast. Like the colors, pretty cool, huh? It's just that when we're working and raising our own consciousness in whatever way, it's not just for us, all right? So it starts with us, ourselves, and then we may also focus our energy and share it with someone else, another individual that we might be praying with or for, okay? And then we also have a wave of group consciousness or community consciousness. So here at Unity of Madison, we kind of have a group consciousness. You can think of other places, a workplace, an office, a team, whatever. There's a group consciousness, and you can feel it. and then you can see how it gets expressed also in the behaviors and the actions of people. And I'm a sports guy, I know, but one way of easily kind of seeing how those things shift is when in sports they talk about, whoa, the momentum really shifted from one team to another. Well, what the heck is momentum? It's not points on a score, it's our consciousness, and you can see those shifts. So those are the kinds of things that we have at the group level, and then there's the collective. So just, we all influence the total reality of universal consciousness. We all have an impact. So if I'm in victim mode, and that's what I'm focusing on, and that's what I'm believing in, and that's the way I'm acting, it impacts the collective consciousness. Whereas if I'm in vessel verity and realizing our oneness and our peace and our love, that affects it too, in a good way. So it's just one of those things that it helps me, it triggers me, because sometimes when I go down into the victim-victor stuff, then I think, what? I have a responsibility not to do that to other people, not to kind of impact the whole consciousness, and I want to make it better. So that's part of our prayer process too, and why we do it as groups, why we have silent unity, why we teach it. It all works together. And what we have out pictured in our universe, we're all part of that and responsible for that. So, to wrap up, you know, I like to generally do some affirmations and affirm the teachings that we've been working with. And I would encourage you, if you're interested in more of this, Paul goes into it in Heart Center and Metaphysics. He's also got a workbook, and both are available in the bookstore, that helps apply even more. Just the book alone has a lot of application, but the workbook at points has some good points too. And a summary of key points for this Life is Consciousness chapter are: life is consciousness. Raising consciousness begins with remembering and becoming ever more aware of oneness. The ultimate goal is to realize Christ's consciousness. Okay? So, I encourage you to check it out if you're interested in learning more. And then let us together affirm these affirmations. So let's just take it right down the row. Together, I am one and whole. You are one and whole. We are one and whole. Oneness is our true nature. I am grateful. Thank you.